Often, when you dream, I'm sure you notice that there are many distortions of fragmented visions. Time appears to either stretch or bend, or there is no time at all. You could live an entire lifetime in a dream, for example. However, I'm going to go a bit further than that and say that what you're experiencing is that you're actually witnessing a subtle layer of a structure in that particular reality system and how time works in that reality system that you're dreaming. So remember, everything that you dream exists in the omniverse. It cannot not exist. If you see a version of yourself doing even the most absurd, bizarre things that make no sense whatsoever, realize that you are actually witnessing yourself in that reality doing those things. And oddly enough, it's totally possible that that version of you may be seeing a dream of your life you're living here. And to that version, this life and the things you do make no sense at all. And we shouldn't assume that there's only one type of time that you can experience. Or let's say, from in here we have what appears to be the illusion of progression from A to B. But what if there are reality systems and dimensions that go from A to Z and then to M and then back to A? That is actually very, very plausible and relevant because I believe that I have witnessed some of these distorted time reality systems in my dreams, and many of you have as well. I have many dreams in which I experience the events in the dreams in a sort of fragmented time that it wouldn't necessarily progress from A to B or wouldn't be linear, or it would be linear, but it would be multi layered. I've had plenty of dreams in which the experience of the interaction that you have with the beings in the dream are multi layered, and you're witnessing like a pentagon of imagery and experience and sound waves and vibrations and images in a pattern that's not necessarily straight in a line. And even Benjamin Button type reality systems are totally plausible. If everything is possible and can't, you shouldn't limit God and put God inside a box and say that things have to exist in a certain way because this is all we know. All we know is a tiny, minuscule amount compared to what there really is. And just because the laws of physics we have in this universe, which we don't know much about at all, we think we do, doesn't mean that such laws make any sense elsewhere. And speaking of which, in last night's dream, I had experienced this sort of, I would call it like an oscillating a frequency of time that was kind of checkered in a pattern, in like a zigzag pattern, rather than a linear pattern, in which I was observing the inhabitants of this realm, which happen to be my cousins that I do know in this real life that live in Tucson, Arizona. They were playing a concert on the stage in front of many people, and there was a lot of military personnel. There was some kind of military school or army barracks behind the concert, and they were like playing for the soldiers with me being a soldier. And as I was watching them and as I was interacting with people, I was experiencing them in a multi-layered way. I know this is really hard to describe in words, and it's very difficult to explain and it makes little sense, but I just really need you to visualize what I'm trying to say. Like, instead of simply witnessing uh, what a person or a character in the dream is saying, you're also uh, jumping ahead and jumping behind in the all the events surrounding what they said, and then going back to them to understand the full picture. So it's like a pattern like this. That's what I said in the beginning of this video. So you could be jumping from A to Z and then back to M, with M being the middle point in which this person in the dream is describing to you something in the dream. So it is multi-layered. So there are reality systems that are very complex like this, in which you're experiencing a multi-layered pattern of thoughts, pattern of vision, pattern of depth and sound, and you're internalizing all of that. And I believe that these complex systems are for more advanced souls because they're very difficult to actually physically incarnate and live in. But souls do that, as because souls incarnate everywhere in God's creation. And His creation is without end, it is without boundaries, because eternity cannot have any boundaries. It has always existed and it always will. So, different layers and patterns of time. This is something to think about. This is something to internalize. Start maybe looking at time in a different way, expanding your perception of how a life or how a reality can be experienced, instead of just looking at things from point A to point B. Start looking at a tapestry of events and images that could come to you. Anyway, having said that, I had a very disturbing dream a few days back that I was very reluctant to share, but I will, because I feel it's important. And as I've told you guys before, I've had many dreams in which I clearly remember the conversations taking place. Um, and this one I remember very clearly. And so I was sitting in front of the computer, and there was like a thing. I mean, it was like a social media site that resembled Facebook, and I saw a face that appeared in front of me on the screen, and it looked like Mark Zuckerberg. And he stared at me straight in the eye and said that if I continue posting things on Facebook that I'm not supposed to, that there will be severe consequences. And he said this to me in a very monotone, dry, robotic voice. And the whole thing felt very dark and sinister. Having said that, I haven't posted anything since that day. I I took the dream pretty seriously, to be honest, even though it probably doesn't mean much. And of course, I don't think it was actually him, but something about it that really deeply disturbed me. Anyway, guys, just want to encourage everyone to start thinking way outside the box. Come to the realization that eternity does not have limits, does not have bounds. It's unfortunate in some ways because there are no limits to sorrow, just as there are no limits to joy. But it's all a matter of perspective, I suppose. And there's a billion ways to experience one single event, to experience one little thing. There are a billion, trillion ways to experience that one event. Look at it that way. All right.